Alex, where am I right now?
In front of a green screen, Nathan.
Oh, well, let me see if I can change that. Alright, something cool just happened. Anyway,
I'll find out in post.
we'll find out in post. Anyway, thank you for joining us today on Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
And I am Alex.
And today we have more topics. Yes, more topics to discuss.
No guest. We're sorry.
Sorry about that. Chris found a way to escape.
If you want to see Chris back on the show, though, probably tweet at him. Be like, hey, that show you did? Go back on it again. Really fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he likes escape rooms, and this is basically that in podcast form, so worth it. First thing up on the show is a soapbox this week, and it's one I wanted to discuss because with the release of games like Elden Ring, which just came out and got a lot of critical acclaim, and Horizon Forbidden West, as well as a few others, Dying Light 2, Nobody Saves the World, Pokemon Arceus, which we actually might be talking about in a little bit. There's already discussion about Game of the Year for 2022. And this...
Well,
yeah.
From what I've heard, it's not going to be for Horizon Forbidden West.
Oh, you did? Because I've seen articles where they are suggesting it is. So...
Oh, I've heard, Yahtzee the other night. Meh.
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 Yeah. There's... Depending on who you listen to. I had seen some articles on it. I also did watch a few different reviews that found it to be a massive improvement even over the previous one in how it's structured. Elden Ring, I think, is probably less ambiguous. That's pretty much just everybody having I don't know, just a love fest right now. Especially people that like From Software. But...
Everybody but us.
Not that I'm adverse to playing it. I probably will at some point to see, because it sounds different than Dark Souls, which is probably the best comment they could make about it. But at any rate, a lot of people talking about what's great, what has improved, and mostly the conversation has started to come around what is going to be the game of the year for 2022. And folks, it's February when we record this. No. This is a very straightforward thing. I understand you like the game. That's great. You can keep a mental note. Please don't make me start thinking about what is going to be the game of the year. We're like 2 months into the year. And more importantly than all of that is that I think that it undermines the idea that we have another 10 months of games that are going to get released, and that it's kind of like the chucking that off to the side, like, oh yeah, we're done. This is the game of the year, folks.
Yeah, you don't need another game for the rest of the year now.
Pack it in.
Deciding game of the year now.
Pack it in. There's nothing else getting released. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. When that is absolutely not the case, the year is actually looking pretty good. Hopefully a lot of the releases that are coming out are going to be
is Star
positive.
Citizen finally coming out?
No. Don't worry about that. But I think the one that I'm actually looking forward to seeing if it's good or not is Shadow of Chernobyl is going to be getting a new version later in the year. There's actually a long list. They've been talking about how this is looking like a pretty impressive year for a lot of big game releases. But the idea that, because we had a few big game releases at the beginning of the year, which is not always typical, usually you'll see them around, the end of the year, November, December, when we get into the holiday season. But because we had some big releases right up at the front of the year, people are already making picks for Game of the Year and talking about, oh yeah, is this going to be the Game of the Year? We don't know. You've only seen literally 2%, 5% maybe, of the games that are going to be in contention for that. It's probably too early to be talking about it. And I think that if we try that too early, we're going to have a problem later on when we have all the other games come up, and it's like, but I had my game of the year. It's like, yes, you did.
Yeah, when we go, oh, look at all these other games that came out this year.
Yes, there's a wide range, a wide variety to choose from. Now, the reason why I think a lot of people are doing that is because there is, again, because you get a lot of these big releases at the end of the year, a sense of forgetting the stuff that came earlier. I've seen that happen a lot, where people will be like, oh, right, I played that 7 months ago, and I forgot about it. So if you're doing it so that you can remember this for the future, like put a little mental note there to say, yep, that's going to be something I have to revisit, that's fine. I mean, even I do that when I'm talking about, like, the best to worst list, is I try to keep a running list of everything that came out during the year, so that I remember everything I played. Because otherwise there are a couple that I had from this last year that I would have forgotten I played altogether. So I get that, but it is just way too early to declare. I mean, imagine if before they announced the Oscar nominations 2 months after the year started, and yeah.
Well, I don't think that's quite what you mean. I think it'd be like, imagine if in February they said, all right, well, Denzel Washington might be getting the Oscar this year based on his performance from this movie that came out in January.
Yeah. Oh, and they never do that.
And then we go,
yes.
Then we go, it's February. There's 60 other films coming out this year. It's like, meh.
That's the thing that always concerns me, though, is the idea that, like, yeah, it's going to be fine if you want to say that this is probably going to be in contention, but I think that there's some folks that jump on it really too quickly that's like, yeah, this is it, no problem. That Elden Ring, I think, is especially going to be that way, where I've heard people talking about it as masterpieces, strong recommendations, the best work that From Software has ever made, and my concern is that that's going to cloud people's judgment as they look at other very good games that are going to be releasing later this year, where... Yeah.
You tend to get people forgetting that these are publishers that you want to put out games in those cases.
Mm-hmm.
These are publishers you expect to put out good games that already have a massive following.
Right.
As opposed to some of the more breakaway titles, like Nobody Saves the World, I think you were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know who made that.
Drinkbox.
I don't know who they are.
They made Guacamelee, which was again, you don't know. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But you know, it's stuff like that. It's games that are suddenly, oh, these are really good, and they become really popular, from out of nowhere. But then again, then it becomes like, oh, it's the indie game of the year type deal. You know?
Yeah, and I guess that's the end problem always seems to be that when we're talking about the Game of the Year competitors, especially with the amount of media attention that they get, it's usually from large publishers that are able to give out a lot of review copies to people that are able to promote their games a lot, which is not uncommon among media in general. They do that a lot with movies, the Oscars, you know, they will throw out screeners for people, as well as nice, very elaborate gift baskets for my consideration. But I think game devs probably do that a little bit too. But
they do.
Yeah. But the thing about it is that then that also goes into the fact that, yeah, a lot of smaller studios don't necessarily get that consideration, don't necessarily get that kind of PR, and in some ways are doing some of the most innovative work. I've been a little encouraged because you do see them start to pop up a little bit more on people's Game of the Year lists when they're talking about the best games of this last year. I know with Polygon, and I saw some on the Game Awards and stuff, where they were acknowledging that smaller games and companies existed. Like, their existence is there. It's just
You know what we just need to do is to get rid of the Game Awards.
You just need to get rid of the Game Awards.
It's stupid. It makes no point to have it.
Mm.
Let people play what they want. don't
Yeah.
artificially grade something and say it's the best thing that came out. It's like, well, there's the difference in opinions. You know, that's when people would constantly tell me that, oh, Final Fantasy VII is the best game ever, and I would go, yeah, and I don't trust your judgment, so I'm
Right.
not gonna play it.
The reason why Jeff Keighley was really the one that started that, or was spearheading that. The point of that was to try and create, like, the Oscars or the Emmys or the Grammys, but for video games. That's what they really wanted to do. And
Why?
maybe they did, and that's the problem.
That is the problem. It's like, yeah, you're getting...
Maybe that's the
You know,
problem.
I was listening to something about this, and I think it was Yahtzee and Jack Packard, maybe, on something slightly else, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was or it might have been somebody else, but I think it was them. The problem with the Game Awards is that the people behind the scenes on the Game Awards are, like, AAA game developer presidents and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not a conflict of interest.
Yeah, it's the same problem with who is picking it in all of those award ceremonies, is that you have a certain committee essentially that's doing a lot of that. Not just for the actual determining who's the game of the year or the movie of the year or anything, but also who's picking the nominations and the nominees in the first place.
So it was like, yeah, these people are AAA game developing presidents. And then, like, the media outlets that are partial in there as well are owned by part of the other conglomerates with them. So it's like, it's a completely, almost rigged system, essentially.
Yeah.
It'd be like if we went, all right, we're gonna vote on, you know, it's the tabletop game of the year, or the Ennies, for instance.
Yep.
You know, it's like, it's if that was judged by the people that, you know, like on Amazon or something. It's like, oh yes, which game do we get the most money from?
Yeah.
You know, it's something like that. And it's just like, really?
It's kind of like if the Ennies were run by, like, Milton Bradley. And Hasbro.
Wizards,
yeah, just Wizards, Paizo, just like all of them are the ones that are running the show.
Best RPG of the world in the entire, you know, tabletop RPG game, and it is just
the Legend Award,
it's
D&D.
won by WotC, and like Fantasy Flight, and then Paizo, and it's like, oh yeah, we're giving out the awards. It goes to D&D and Pathfinder 3.5.
Hey, who would have guessed?
It's not anything that I think we should put any real stock into.
And it is, unfortunately, with anything that's artistic, and this is where a lot of the award ceremonies are, it's very subjective anyway. Your game of the year is not going to be mine. Everybody knows that. I think that's why there's, like, so many disparate lists at the end of the year when they have that. But I was watching a Skill Up video, and it was about the Game Awards for 2021, and he was just fascinated by the fact that, like, Deathloop was winning so many awards for, like, things like game design over, like, Returnal and Psychonauts 2, which he which he then goes, games that have better level design than Deathloop. Just it's over there with them, with all of them. And I understand that. Like, there were a lot of people that had problems with, like, 12 minutes, and 12 minutes was up there with game design legends as well. And it's hard. And some genres that even kind of get shafted. It was great to see, like, Forza Horizon 5 was on there, but, like, racing games and all of those usually don't.
Forza got shafted. Everyone was like, this game is gorgeous and absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
like,
and
all the fans are like, this game is great, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah. And, like, I'm happy that, like, at least when they got around to, like, Game of the Year, it was It Takes Two, which does come from a smaller studio at least, and is like a cooperative game, which means I'll never play it, but the thing is, but at least I could respect that. Like, they weren't just going to go, Halo, just all Halo all the time, just Halo Infinite. But I find that to be the problem with not just Game of the Year as a general concept, but mostly trying to have that conversation this early in the year is detrimental to everything else that comes after it. And there's always a feeling in the air that you have to rush to judgment, especially when there's so many outlets that want to get their reviews out early, want to get clicks on them, want to get media attention to them, and sometimes shouting, "This could be the game of the year," or "This is my game of the year," is very easy way to like get attention and eyeballs on it. But folks, that doesn't mean that we can't that we can't dismiss everything else that comes afterward.
Sure we can. We're gonna dismiss everything, especially what comes after this episode.
Exactly.
This is the podcast episode of the year.
This is the podcast episode of the year.
Out of all the podcasts, mind you.
That's
Not
right.
just ours.
No, out of every podcast episode, this is podcast episode of the year. That's got to be what the segment's called. The podcast episode of the year. and we're going to make it about that. And the judging was done literally by the two of us. We decided it. And we were the only nominee. And we are now the winner. And we have no trophy for it, but, you know, there's a trophy in our heads. We won.
The award is $50,000.
And someone's going to pay that to us.
That whoever's listening to this needs to supply us with.
That's right. That's right. We are part of the Total Podcast Total Podcast Knockdown.
Collective.
Yeah. Collective.
With a K.
Collective. Yeah, Total Podcast Collective, and there needs to be money attached to that. Now let's see some game previews. Okay, let's next up we are going to delve deeper. I think that's fun. Dude, you know why I did that.
Yeah.
Delving deeper. Gotta delve them all. Delving deeper.
Now we're gonna be copyright claimed for that. Thanks.
That's parody. No, they're come to me and say, well, we didn't find it very funny, so apparently it's not.
Nintendo's very litigious.
Oh, yes. There'll be more topics on that in the future. Anyway, for another time. But on this Delving Deeper, though, you wanted to tell me a little bit about the design of Pokemon Arceus.
I wanted to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Lord Helix.
Okay. How is
But
Helix?
not actually. That's Twitch Plays Pokemon.
Okay.
All hail Lord Helix.
Okay.
No, Pokemon Legends Arceus, which when you were here the other day playing some D&D, I guess it was a
couple weeks.
Anyways, when you were over here, I kind of showed you a bit about it, and Ray and I have been playing it, and I know Datum over in Discord has been playing it as well. But I want to talk about that since it is a breakaway title from the mainline traditional Pokemon games, or what is considered the mainline Pokemon games.
Okay.
And they did a different formula than usual, and I know there's been a lot of press and coverage around it. And I just want to talk about that. So,
sure.
You are familiar with the normal Pokemon games, I assume.
Oh, I might have played a few of them, yeah. Yeah,
So,
in the past.
very atypical, you start out in your mother or father's house as a 10-year-old kid. Your goal is to go be the Pokemon champion, collect them all, beat the Elite Four. It's very much the same throughout all of those games through, through Gen 1 through Gen whatever, 8.
Yeah, you're becoming a Pokemon master.
Yeah, your goal is to become the Pokemon master. And Pokemon Legends Arceus starts off with a different premise completely. Spoiler here if you haven't played and you want to play.
Okay.
So anyone who's still listening, here's the spoiler.
Okay.
You start the game falling through a space-time rift.
Okay, I did not see that coming.
So, it starts off, you're basically talking to Arceus, or Lord Sinnoh, as they call him, the Pokemon god, essentially. Your character is falling through a rift with their phone from, like, our time into the past. And you end up in ancient Sinnoh.
Oh.
Which is the region it takes place in. The Hisui region. It's part of Sinnoh, I think. I don't know.
Oh.
Anyways, you're found on this shore. You're just
Okay.
this kid in a t-shirt and shorts and like sandals in like feudal Japan era times.
Oh, okay.
And everyone's like, okay, that's a little weird, but also there's this space-time rift in the sky, and we know it's a space-time rift for some reason. So the premise right off the bat isn't like, oh yeah, you're a kid whose parent, like, generally it's like you've got one parent, your other parent's either gone or like one of the games is your dad's a gym leader, like the first gym leader, so you go and battle him and then go on your way. This one is, yeah, no, you're a 15-year-old, not a 10-year-old. You've fallen through space and time into ancient Pokemon times. And you've got a cell phone that Lord Arceus talks to you with, essentially going, yeah, you've got to like, go collect all of the Pokemon, essentially.
Okay. And
It's
thus
like-
you're off on your Pokemon collection quest.
So, the premise is weird. It's a little strange at first. But the way they do it is fun.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer about random battles with trainers and becoming the best. There are very few actual, like, Pokemon battles between trainers that you run into, comparatively speaking.
Okay.
The game is not based around that. Like, you'll get into a few, but most of the trainers you run into have maybe 1 or 2 Pokemon.
Sure.
Because most of the people you've run into in town are like terrified of Pokemon.
Oh, well, that kind of
And-
tracks. Have you ever seen a
so-
Snorlax? Yeah.
Yes, I've seen an Alpha Snorlax, and I'll tell you about that a bit later.
Okay, cool.
So most of the people in town are like, we don't know much about Pokemon. They're kind of terrifying, which again tracks. So you're going around and you're helping, you're collecting, catching Pokemon, but you're doing it like Pokemon Go style. Not the same type of gameplay, but you're catching a lot of Pokemon.
Right. Do you have to weaken them like before, or can you pretty much just
don't have
pop
to
them?
weaken them, but it does help. You can sneak up in the grass
Oh.
and just throw Pokeballs at them.
Oh.
And then if it doesn't catch them and they become aggressive and try to attack you, they can't attack you in the overworld.
Sure.
And if you get hit with too many attacks, you will pass out. And you drop your satchel and you lose a couple items, and then other players on the internet can find them and return them to you.
Oh, well, that's good.
Which is a cool mechanic.
That's neat.
You actually need to do that in order to buy some items with the merit points you get from that.
Oh.
That's a whole different system, however.
Mm.
But, so you can go around. If you don't want to use your Pokemon to battle, you really don't have to for a lot of it. Because you can just sneak around, throw berries, attract them to the berries, sneak up behind them, throw a Pokeball at them. You can play the game sneaking through bushes.
Yeah.
So that's different, because most Pokemon games, the whole thing is random battles and then trainer battles.
Sure. Yeah. I was also looking, I was hearing on a few different places, the interesting thing that sets it apart from the mainline games is the cat.
Excuse the cat.
Yeah. Meowth. But
That's
they...
right.
That's right. Team Rocket. There's no Team Rocket in this, is there?
No. This is way before Team Rocket.
It was way before. Oh, that's right. They went back to feudal Japan. They're still Pokeballs.
Yeah, they look different.
Oh,
You make
okay.
them- you make the Pokeballs yourself. There is a whole crafting mechanic where you can make the Pokeballs and most of the items that you would use as well.
Oh.
So if you don't want to buy them, for instance, you do not have to.
Oh, that's neat.
So you can just be out in the field and be like, I need Pokeballs. Go collect some supplies, craft a ton of Pokeballs.
Oh, fair enough. I also like the fact, so if they went back to feudal Japan, this is like they got through a time rift and stuff. Did they pull us Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3? Where they went back to feudal Japan and they no
No,
feel
a little
Pokemon
different.
yeah Pokemon Secrets of the Ooze.
No secrets, no ooze.
There's no ooze.
There's probably a little bit of ooze.
Yeah, well, there's oh god, now is there a Grimer? If you can catch Grimer, then there's some ooze.
Probably not. I haven't found one yet. I don't know. I don't think Grimer's in this one. There's like 250 some odd Pokemon in this game.
Okay.
So again, it's not a full Pokédex of like all of the Pokemon from all the games, which is fine. It's not a mainline game introducing a new series of Pokemon,
Right.
which most of the mainline ones do.
Even the mainline games, though, if you looked at like Sword and Shield and those that they tried to come out with, they don't actually include a full roster of the Pokemon.
I mean, Sword and Shield you have to get DLC for, so that's an outlier too. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Sun and Moon, they did all that, plus the Alolans, the variants on the original 150, which were really cool, because it was like, alright, here's a reimagining of these Pokemon from a different region. And you do have a couple of those, I believe, in this. You have a couple remakes. The Growlithe and Arcanine have a different form.
Oh.
To be more in line with that time period. Voltorb and Electrode also have a different form. They look like Pokeballs, but the kind from that era.
Okay.
You can get the Alolan Vulpix, I believe,
in
this game. Shiny Pokemon do exist. And you get one as part of like a mission. The structure is different too. Instead of being like, alright, I don't know what I'm doing kind of deal, which in general the Pokemon games is like very linear, but you had to figure out the path like based on what you had to do. You had to go around, find the next solution to what you need to progress along your path. It usually ends up just being the gym battles, and a couple other things here and there. And this one, you get missions, and you can take requests from the town folk to go fill your Pokédex, essentially. Basically, you have to see the Pokemon do certain things or catch certain types of the Pokemon, like light or heavy, and you have to fill it out a number of times to complete the entry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people will request that you do things. Like one person at the beginning is like, hey, so Beautify is a cool Pokemon, and I heard that it evolves from a Wurmple. Can you go catch me a Wurmple?
Yeah.
So you do. You go, you catch him a Wurmple, you bring it back, and then you help him name it. Oh. He named it Bojin.
Bojin?
Yeah, his name is Beauregard.
Oh, so he needed a friend that was also named Bo.
Yes.
But
and then, so you give him that, and then from that point forward, that Pokemon is next to him in the town. And then as you're doing stuff, more Pokemon are like showing up in town. You get a couple Bidoofs that you catch because they're like eating the fences, and you catch them, and they help the construction corp, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And then like you have the farm, and it's like, hey, I could really use like a Pokemon that's good with like the fields and ground, so you bring him a ground type Pokemon. And then later on, when you expand the fields, they're like, hey, what about like a Pokemon with some kind of water, can use water to help with the irrigation? And it's like, all right, cool, yeah, I brought you a water Pokemon, and you expand that.
Oh, okay.
So you're like introducing them to more Pokemon. So like the storyline, I haven't even gone over like the in-game design choices for like gameplay much.
Sure.
But just some of that stuff is so different than the mainline Pokemon games, where you're seeing the effect of introducing Pokemon to like being used and teamed up with and like friends with, essentially, can change the people's perception of them and how the town functions and can grow as a whole by having Pokemon in it.
So is this kind of like a bootstrap sort of thing? Like you had to go back in time so that people would get used to the Pokemon, so that in the future...
bootstrap paradox type thing, but it's interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So that's fun. So design choices otherwise. The Pokemon battles are a lot more... They're about the same, honestly. You're in 3D.
From the older ones, yeah.
So you can walk around during it, and if you run off too far, you can just kind of leave the battle and call your Pokemon back. You can run almost whenever. The difference is, like, they did simplify parts of it, where you can now swap out your Pokemon's moves pretty much on the fly. As long as you're not in battle, you can go into the menu and just be like, alright, I'm going to change this move for that move, and swap them out, and then confirm.
Okay.
so you don't have to go to a
A
move tutor.
Pokemon Center or something like that? Or...
Well, there's move tutors. You can go and have them delete moves and then change moves and
Got it.
remember old moves. But you can only have 4 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You can still only have 4, but you can change them out
Fair.
at will.
Fair.
And not have it be a weird system to do it. That's nice.
Mm.
There's a mastery system for the moves,
Okay.
which has never existed before.
Mm.
So essentially, you can do either a strong style move or an agile style move, where the strong style move adds to the power,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes it slower.
Oh, okay.
And it takes more power points, the PP, for the move, so you can't do it as many times, but like if you do a strong style, it becomes a lot more powerful.
Mm.
The agile style one makes it a little less powerful, but faster.
Right.
So you can be like, alright, well, I want to get this hidden, and then maybe get another hidden after this.
Fair. Okay.
So it's interesting, or you can just do normal. So you can do normal or those, and that's interesting because you can mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
You could say have a really powerful move, and then weaken it to make it go a little bit faster, which is cool.
Huh. Okay.
A downside is I've noticed that none of the moves that are traditionally area moves in Pokemon are no longer area moves.
Oh.
So
okay.
if you only have your Pokemon in battle, you're doing a one-on-one battle, but they can have 3 of them versus the one of your Pokemon.
Mm.
So generally when that happens, you would want to be like, alright, well this move affects multiple Pokemon.
Mm.
That doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Oh. Okay.
Which is kind of a downside. You're kind of like, okay, but I wanted to use, Water Pulse because it will hit all of them, or Bubble will hit all the Pokemon on the field. Doesn't do that anymore.
Right.
So that's annoying.
Right. That actually feels like a return to old form when you really didn't have multiple Pokemon that you would fight at any time. It was always a one-on-one battle, so they didn't really have area attacks. Yeah. At that time.
So that's annoying because it's like, all right, well, there's 4 Pokemon I'm in a battle with, and I'm only using my 1, and I have to attack each of them individually.
Mm.
So that's a little annoying. Another simplification was they got rid of the abilities from Pokemon.
Oh.
Where normally you'd have a Pokemon, like if I'm an Omega Ruby, Geodude might know the ability Sturdy. So one-hit moves won't kill him, they'll just bring him down to 1 HP.
Mm.
But most Pokemon have 2 abilities, and then some have a 3rd hidden ability. And they can have those based on which ones you catch. So that's gone. And I feel like it would be nice to have that back in there because it would add a little bit more customization and point to like catching different ones.
Mm.
The other thing that's removed is breeding.
Okay.
I don't think there's any breeding mechanic in there, which is fine. Not everyone's into that. It can be a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
I did a lot of Pokemon breeding in Omega Ruby because it was fun. I was trying to do specific builds and specific movesets for them, so I figured out how to work all those around and do it. And the other thing is I don't think there are IVs, which are the individual values, which if you're a competitive player are what you want, but if you're not competitive, it doesn't matter. These are the base stats of the Pokemon. Have a range from like 0 to 36, 36 being best and 0 being abysmal.
Right.
So they got rid of that. As far as I know, those don't exist. It's more along the lines of what they did, I guess, in Sword and Shield and Pokemon. Maybe not Sword and Shield. Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu, and then like Pokemon Go, where it just got like the effort values, so you can increase those and get their stats to be better, but it doesn't have both the effort and the individual values.
Okay. But now they didn't carry over like combat power and stuff like that from, did they? Or is it just the levels?
Which combat power? From like Pokemon Go?
From Go, yeah.
No, those are just your... Pokemon Go is super simplified.
Yeah.
This one still has your HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed, which are the IVs or the EVs.
Sure. the other things that I was hearing about it, and I'd be interested to hear you talk a little bit about it, was that so much of what they did with Arceus, and one of the reasons why people were viewing it in more of a positive light than Sword and Shield and a lot of other earlier games, is that they streamlined a lot of things. Like, you don't have to, like they don't have to tell you, hey, you picked this shrub up off the ground every single time. It just, like, makes a little note, +1 or something to
Yeah,
shrubs.
that one's nice, because you pick up ingredients and crafting materials off the ground, or you toss your Pokemon at a tree and it will knock the berries down and collect them. But it
Just
doesn't
like-
come up with a text box every time that needs to, like, be scrolled.
I don't have to go into a menu to do that every single time. I can just do it with a
No,
button.
it doesn't come up. It
Yeah.
comes up with a thing, and it goes, however many you found, and just a little notification pop up, and then it goes away. And then if you use a Pokemon for the tree, it'll give them a little experience.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that's just pop up and goes around.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I wish lasted longer were the on-screen toasts. When your Pokemon leveled, it will go, give all the Pokemon. If you battle, all your Pokemon get experience for it, not just the one you use in battle. I think that one gets more.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But once they level, if they level, it'll go level up, and then it'll be like new move or move mastered or can evolve. It'll come up on the screen on the side there, but it doesn't last a whole long time. So if they got a new move and you weren't looking,
Sure.
you then have to go in and check the Pokemon's move screen to see if there's a new move. So that's a little annoying. But you can also choose to evolve your Pokemon when you want.
Oh, okay, that's
As
neat.
long as they hit the requirement for it, you can be like, oh, it's level 16, it can evolve now. You can just go in there, and then it'll say can't evolve, and you select the button, and you can evolve it right then and there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's neat. There was also something that was here. You get a mount in this pretty
You
early.
get a couple mounts in this.
Yeah.
You get it no less than 3.
Yeah. That's a little bit better than the bike.
Yeah, the bike's kind of cool, but you can ride on a big Wardeer or an Ursaluna, and you get them based on how far you are. Not gonna spoil how you get them, because it's kind of neat. But you get a deer that you can ride, and it can jump, and it can sprint really fast. Then you get a bear.
Perfect.
Big bear. You can ride a bear. It can't sprint, but it can dig up treasure and smell things.
Oh, I like smelling
think-
things. Yeah.
Then I think in the third area you get a fish that you ride on for water,
Oh, perfect.
which looks silly.
I'm sure it does. I was like, well, why wouldn't they give you a Gyarados? And then just
I
let
would
you
love.
to ride a Gyarados.
I caught a Gyarados that is up, in the air, flying around near a waterfall,
Yeah.
because Gyarados is a water flying type. It is not a dragon type.
Oh, gotcha.
It's got these tiny little wings and it's just flying around. But once it gets so far, it's not the best optimization on it because it's on the Switch. But if it's going in a circle, and once you're here and it gets to there, the furthest point away from you, you just kind of see it going
Oh, yeah.
really
Yeah.
slowly because it's not within the right distance to see the animation fully. So it's kind of like
Oh.
janky.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so weird.
Right. That's good to know. But yeah, I was looking at the streamlining of it, and I thought that was a neat idea.
One thing I will say is really neat, and I was talking to Datum about it too, because he's been playing, as I said, is the alphas.
Yeah, there was an alpha Snorlax you met.
There's an alpha Snorlax. It's like 10'9". It is gargantuan and terrifying.
That
So
is.
alphas, it seems like there are some that are preset into locations that they respawn, and they'll always be in that one location. And then there seems to be random alphas you can find, but alphas are essentially bigger versions of the Pokemon, and they can know like a move differently than their normal kin can.
Okay.
But I think you can teach Pokemon other moves too, but the alphas will know moves that the smaller versions cannot know, I believe.
Okay.
But even after you catch an alpha, it will stay the same size.
Oh.
They have red glowing eyes when they're wild. They lose that, but they stay big. So I've got like an alpha scyther that is huge. I have an alpha Lopunny that is like 9 feet tall.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're big. They're great.
And you can take them out in town and just show everybody.
One of the missions I had, or one of the requests, was to bring one of the guys in town a Parasect.
Sure.
And I gave him an alpha version.
Oh.
And it stays alpha.
Oh, so it's just in town. It's just
and
hanging around.
And part of the thing is, like I gave him that, and it's in his house, and he's like, "Oh, where's the Pokemon? You brought me a big mushroom." And he's like, "Wait, you're telling me that is the Pokemon?" And like Parasect pokes his head out, and he's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
The other one that's funny is, remember Beauregard and Bojin? Well, his Wurmple evolved into a Cascoon, I think. Wurmple can evolve into either Cascoon or Silcoon, and I believe it's at random. His evolved into one that will become a Dustox, not a Beautifly, and he wanted a Beautifly. So he asks you to go and catch another, get another Silcoon to compare it to his Pokemon.
Yeah.
And so I go out and I find a Alpha Wurmple, or I find an Alpha Silcoon. I'm like, oh, yes, I'm gonna go bring this back to it because, Alpha's better, why not?
Sure.
And so I go to give it to him, and he's like, whoa, you caught an Alpha? He's like, that's really awesome. They said you were good at this, but I didn't think you're that good. And then he's like, can you get like a non-alpha though? Because it's a little hard to compare mine to that.
Oh, so now you got to go back out?
I was like, I'm really happy they did that, because that is really cool continuity in knowing that I did that.
That you did that. Yeah, they prepared for it.
Yeah, they prepared for it, and I thought that was neat.
The other thing that I'm wondering, just from the design perspective from previous games, is if you remember the earlier, handheld versions of Pokemon, the way that they're structured is that you kind of end up in a region, and then you have to do stuff in that, like, one town or that one area before you can move on, because they've kind of, like, locked that off. My understanding is that Arceus is much more open world in the way that it's structured.
But you still, in order to get to those other regions, you start in like one area, and you can unlock the next, and then unlock the next through the main story.
Sure. Okay.
But the requests that you could just go straight through the main story and do it. You don't have like gyms to unlock stuff. You have to get your research level up by catching all the Pokemon. But you can do that just by playing. For that, like, I can have Pokemon up to like at level 85, I think, obey me, and I have no Pokemon anywhere near that level. But the way you do that is you go through the main quests and the main story quests, and you go through, and you have to, I believe, quell some noble Pokemon, which is part of the story. Again, I won't really spoil it because I don't really have the best details to go into it without spoiling it. But essentially, it's, instead of a gym battles, you go through, you quell this noble Pokemon, and then they have a mission for you to go into the next area to do a thing, and you do a couple mainline quests, but there's not a whole lot of them between each area if you're going straight linear and just doing them. I don't think.
Right. I'm going to guess that you're probably doing the side stuff.
I am. Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing everything on the side. But
Figured
you can still go
much.
back to those areas. Like, you seemingly only have the one town you really hang out in. But then you have camps in each of the areas you can go to rest and do more crafting or check your Pokédex, change out your Pokemon. But then if you go back to town, you can do that too.
Got it.
Interact with all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one day when I get a Switch, I'll probably play Arceus.
Yeah, it kind of requires you have a Switch.
Yeah, it does. I'll mostly, it was that, but then also mostly Breath of the Wild and Mario, whichever that Mario one was. Odyssey.
Odyssey,
yeah.
I've heard the comparison to a Pokemon Breath of the Wild a few times.
Yeah, I saw the structure of it and thought that there might have been some inspiration behind it, yeah.
I think it would be really cool for mainline Pokemon games to kind of take this formula and kind of go with it, but without dumbing down some of the combat stuff that is traditional in the mainline games as well. Like even Ray playing it, she's been playing it more than I have.
Sure.
Like she's not really a fan of the mainline Pokemon games as much, just because they're just, God, no, what's the reason? She gets bored. Just fighting the random battles over and over, she gets bored.
Oh, yeah, the random battles. You can actually see the Pokemon in this one right before you go.
Yeah, you see 90% of them, except for, like, if they're in a rock formation or in a tree, but then you can knock them out of it.
Gotcha.
You know, and I get that. There's other aspects in there, but that's the main thing that those games focus on, is the trainer battles and the random battles.
Sure.
And I think a formula like this could work really well towards getting people who don't like the traditional Pokemon for that reason to enjoy it a bit more. I think this is a more fun experience and less of a grind.
Sure.
But also I think they could add more things to this that are in those games that could make this more fun too. Like, we were talking in the car last night about this, and like Pokemon contests are a thing in the mainline Pokemon games.
Sure.
They're also in the anime, if you want to be technical. Pokemon contests are a thing. So instead of battling HP versus HP, you go against other trainers to be like stylish.
Yeah.
So like you can like, I think May from the Pokemon show might have been a Pokemon contestant. She would dress her Pokemon up, get in costume, and they'd do
a Pokemon stylist.
No, those exist in the mainline games. You know, you can do that. There's a whole thing in either X and Y or Omega Ruby. I think it's X and Y, but it's like there are Pokemon, not Coliseums at this point, but there are Pokemon contest stadiums. And you go in, you get your Pokemon, they know moves that are either like cool or sweet or cute or whatever. They've got like 4 different types of moves, and every move in the game is one of those.
Sure.
It has different effects from combat than it does in the contest. So you can get a Pokemon and then you can give it like I think Pokeblocks or whatever. There are ways to increase its stats for like being cool or strong or tough or whatever the stats. I don't remember all the stats right now, Nathan.
You don't remember all the stats off the top of your head?
No,
I'm disappointed.
I didn't really focus on the contest, honestly.
I'm disappointed.
Did a few of them, but I had a cosplay Pikachu dressed up as a rock star.
Oh.
Yeah, cosplay Pikachus were pretty rad.
Yeah.
But I think that one would be cool, especially where the game has an online functionality. Maybe not for this one, because it takes place in a weird time period that doesn't make sense.
Sure.
But for like another Pokemon game like that,
yeah,
in the modern world, to have a Pokemon contest as a portion, but you could do it versus other players.
Right.
Would be really interesting. Because then you could take it and you go, all right, I've got this Pokemon, it knows these moves, it's set up for the contest battles instead. And then you have player v player, but not to see who's got the best combat Pokemon, but who can be the most strategic in the contest like this.
Right.
Because the moves were used for strategy, like you want to use them at the right time to get the most appeal.
Yeah.
And then you're judged at the end and you win or you get a place.
Got it.
And those are a lot harder to actually optimize into and figure out than the actual Pokemon battles. Because it's a completely different system.
Sure.
So I think something like that in a game like this, added to it for the variety, would do really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other one we were talking about too was what we really need now is Pokemon Crossing.
Oh God.
Where you get the Animal Crossing formula, but with Pokemon.
No, we don't.
No, it would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
Would it streamline Animal Crossing so that you don't have to pick up the same?
I don't think it would streamline Animal Crossing, but you would get what everyone loves about Animal Crossing mixed with Pokemon, which in the Pokemon universe, you know, they're used for all sorts of things. They are friends, they're companions for battling, you can use them as moving services.
Oh,
you know?
sure.
There's a lot of things that go on that you don't actually get to take part in those.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be really neat to be like, all right, well, I've got kind of this Pokemon game where it's like the day-to-day life, but you can also like do Pokemon battles.
Here's what you need to do. You take the Animal Crossing. You implement Pokeballs. Now I can catch Tom Nook.
Yeah, go catch Tom Nook.
Catch Tom Nook.
Battle
and
Isabelle.
You could just have him fight Isabelle. That would be amazing. But better yet, instantly your debt is completely waived because now you have caught Tom Nook. You owe him no bells anymore. You can
all the bells.
All the bells.
And whistles.
And the whistles. There was one big thing though before we get going here with our last topic that we need to get to. But there was one other thing about Arceus that I think is a huge departure from the mainline games.
Is it the way you're pronouncing Arceus?
Arceus, yes, that. Yeah, Arceus, you know, what are you gonna do? But that there is only the one version. It's not split up into two different versions.
Well, yeah, it's not one of the mainline games, which generally have different versions, and those typically are to have slightly different Pokemon.
So that you can trade, because
you can trade.
It's the trading aspect.
That is one of the other things. Trading is a thing in Pokemon Legends, but I see no point in doing it.
Right, because you can just catch it all.
A few people. Well, yeah. I've discussed this with a few people that are playing it too. A couple of my friends and Adam. Who I guess yes, you are one of my friends now too, if you want to be. But
if you want to be.
If you want to be. Sorry.
You don't
Since
have
you
to
actually
be.
listen, I have to preface that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've mentioned or talked about the trading is that it seems kind of pointless for any reason where you can't breed and there aren't abilities and there aren't IVs. Which when I do IV breeding, what I'll do is I'll wonder trade everything I'm not using. And wonder trade is just trading with someone random on the internet.
Sure.
Like, you don't pick what you're trading for. They put up a Pokemon for trade. You put up a Pokemon for trade. And then you trade them. You get a lot of trash. I get rid of all the things that I'm breeding because I do a lot. So I'll give away like 30 Pokemon that don't have the perfect IVs instead of just releasing them from my boxes. Because they're not bad.
Sure.
They're better IVs than normal ones. But they're not what I'm doing. They're not perfect, or they're not the way I want them set up. So it's like, alright, well, I'm going to give these away and maybe get some new Pokemon. So without breeding, without abilities that you can like have multiple of, like there's no ability instead of having two abilities to choose. And with no IVs, which you can get through breeding and make it a superior, stat-wise version, there's literally no reason to trade unless you're trading for either an alpha with a specific move or you want a shiny.
Yeah.
I see no reason to trade otherwise because you can catch all of the Pokemon yourself. There's not going to be any difference between my game and your game, I don't think. They're all going to be able to learn the same moves.
Sure.
There might be a slight size difference because you can catch variance in size, but even then you can just catch it yourself.
Got it.
And the alphas trump any of the other size that's not alpha.
Yeah.
Like if I'm catching an alpha Geodude versus the biggest Geodude I can get that's not alpha, the alpha is still going to be much bigger.
Yeah.
So it's there's no reason to trade.
There isn't. Okay. Yeah.
It's just the shiny or the alpha, or an alpha shiny. I don't think anyone would trade an alpha shiny, however.
Why would you want to? That's just two great things in one.
Yeah, I want an alpha shiny. I cannot wait.
Do you think, though, that that's a real loss when it comes to the trading mechanics? Because I was always kind of on the fence about, like, I remember back in the day, way back in my day, when I was playing Red and Blue. Right, and you would have to choose whether you wanted the red or the blue, and you'd have to find a friend that had the other one, and then there's the whole trading mechanic. Yeah.
It wouldn't be, because red and blue you had to trade, there were 4 Pokemon you had to trade in the original games to evolve them. Being Haunter into Gengar, Machamp, Machoke into Machamp, Kadabra into Alakazam, and then Graveler into Golem.
Golem? Oh, okay.
So those 4.
Okay.
You can get those 4 in this game.
Got it. Okay.
But you don't need to trade them to evolve them.
Right.
You get an item that you can purchase, or you can find, I think, or buy, or whatever, from a different vendor. There's either you can purchase it or find it occasionally, maybe. But it's a link cable, essentially, item, and it will let you evolve the Pokemon with it.
Mm.
And I'm like, if trading's the thing, and those Pokemon need to be traded to evolve, why not just not have the item for it and just trade them to evolve them? Then you would encourage actual reason for having a trading system.
Which, in a system where we now don't have to do link cables, where we can actually just do via internet cable, it seems like more prevalent than ever that it would make sense that people would be able to utilize that technology.
Right.
You don't have to be face to face.
And that's what, if they had a Wonder Trade, it would be for, that'd be fine. Because I could be like, I just caught 15 of this Pokemon to fill my Pokedex. I'm going to go Wonder Trade it out and see what I get.
Right.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You do it just to see what you get. It's like gambling.
Right.
Or people love to gamble.
Or if they, well, of course they do. That's kind of the problem. But the thing is, or if they tried a system like they did with Pokemon Go, where you don't necessarily trade Pokemon, but you actually get, like, gifts or something, and the only use of it is to trade it to somebody else for it.
Yeah.
Weren't there also, though, I thought that there were some individual Pokemon in the games, not just for evolutions, but there were certain Pokemon themselves that only appeared in one of the 2 versions, so you had to trade them over.
And I don't think Red and Blue necessarily, maybe. I think there might have been a couple. But a couple of them are, like, maybe X or Y or whatever. One game will have, like, 3 or 4 Pokemon that will appear in that game and on the other game.
I want to say Kangaskhan was specific to one of the 2.
I think maybe. I think another one was like
not a lot. There weren't a lot, but
no,
enough
to
as
many.
Enough that to keep you
need to do it.
Yeah, to keep you from getting the Pokedex full.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am hoping though that in Pokemon Legends though the reward for getting a complete Pokedex is better than the old games.
They've done a thing with the last several games where the reward you get for getting a complete Pokedex is a shiny charm, which increases the odds of you getting a shiny Pokemon by a fair amount.
Oh, good. Well, that's better than the little plaque that says congratulations.
You still get a little plaque, but you get a shiny charm, and
you get something for it.
Yeah. Dad and I were actually talking about that a bit ago.
Sure.
Let me see. The standard shiny rate in Pokemon Legends Arceus is 1 in 4096. No, so 1 in every 4096 Pokemon is a shiny. It's not a very high chance.
No.
If your Pokemon you're hunting has completed the Pokedex entry to level 10, then the chance increases by double.
Okay.
To 1 in 2048.5.
Right. With the charm.
If you have a perfect Pokedex entry for the Pokemon, which is everything maxed out, it doubles again to 1 in 1024.38.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a shiny charm, the chance to find a shiny goes up. So you need a level 10 Pokedex entry for each Pokemon in the Pokedex to get a shiny charm. And this makes the standard rate to find a shiny 1 in 819.
Got it.
Down from 1 in 4086. So it substantially increases it.
Right.
So with a perfect Pokedex entry and the shiny charm, the standard rate is 1 in 585 Pokemon.
Oh, good. Okay.
If there's a mass outbreak, which is a thing where that happens occasionally, the outbreak shiny chances increase from a normal because there's a lot more of them, and the chance is 1 in 128.
Oh, okay. Then I might actually catch one.
Yes. Ray caught one. She has a shiny Krogunk.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
I might trade her for that.
Yeah, you might want that.
Because she doesn't want to use it, and I might actually use it.
Oh, God. Yeah, so your odds of getting an alpha shiny are going to be incredibly incredibly
I want to get the shiny charm, and I want to get those level. I was telling her that because she wants a shiny like Jolteon.
Sure.
I was like, well, what you need to do is complete the level 10 entry for Eevee, and then every goal inside that.
Sure.
Because once you hit level 10, you're not done with the entry, but you no longer have to research it if you don't want to. There's still other stuff inside it, though.
Got it. Okay.
That you can fill out. So if you get all that, then you can get a better chance of shiny, and then the shiny Eevee, you can get any evolution you want.
Oh, excellent. So, to kind of wrap it up, because we've been talking about this for a while, a long time.
Probably too long.
Probably too long. Always too long. Would you say that the changes that they made to the general design framework for Pokemon Legends were an overall improvement over the standard design that we saw from the earlier games?
I think it's a more accessible design.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's an improvement because I enjoy. Again, I have over 400 something hours in a Omega.
Yeah.
And because I enjoyed figuring out how to breed for moves and IVs and natures and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
To get specific Pokemon built in a specific way to do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that in this. But I think it takes away a lot of the really more hidden systems that are mechanically not intuitive. And again, while talking to Datum, he was saying this game's more accessible for me because in the other games I feel like I want to complete everything.
Sure.
Whereas if breeding's a mechanic, he kind of was saying that if that's a mechanic in it, I want to figure it out and master it kind of deal.
Sure.
I'm paraphrasing. I'm not looking at this conversation. Sorry, Datum.
It's alright.
But, and I get that. So even Ray was saying that there's a bunch of stuff going on that, she doesn't understand in the mainline Pokemon games that are no longer in this game. So it's way more accessible to a more casual type of gaming.
Yeah.
And a more completionist type of gaming. Because there's less of those strange subsystems in there.
Sure.
That people can get overwhelmed or confused with.
Right.
So I think it's a great breakaway. I hope they do more with it because it's really fun.
Sure.
And it's really cool to have the open world Pokemon where you can catch them and not focus on battling.
Certainly.
I'd like to see iterations on it. I'd like to see them do other things in that vein that aren't just Sword and Shield because that was not apparently very well received.
No.
But this one is really fun. I do want to play Sword and Shield. I have not yet, but I do want to at some point.
Yeah, the comments that I mostly heard is that Arceus is a game that actually respects your damn time.
Yeah. Well, you can sit down and just play for a little bit and feel like you've done a lot.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's good. And one day maybe I'll just learn how to say the Arceus.
Arceus.
Arceus, yeah. I like Arceus.
Pokemon Legends Archie.
Archie, yeah. It's gonna be the dark reboot that they do of Pokemon. It's gonna be like Riverdale. Finally on the show we have a Discord discussion for everybody because Discord is always pretty active for us. We have a lot of interesting conversations that are going on.
Don't you lie.
What?
About our Discord being active always.
Well,
to our people in Discord. To their faces.
Sorry. It could be a lot more active. How about that?
No, please don't. I don't have the energy to type.
No, don't type. Don't type.
We do a podcast, so we don't have to write articles.
Yeah, we don't write the articles. We have some people that are in our forums that probably take more time and effort to actually explain our episodes than we do, so that I appreciate that.
We appreciate it though. We do like it. And we do read it. Nathan, you need to respond to them more.
I know, I see and it's like, I have nothing to add. Most of the time it's like, I have nothing important to say here.
You're like, we already talked about this. I have no opinions further.
I'm mostly of the mindset, it's like, oh, that makes me sound way deeper than I am, but okay, let's go with it. But during a recent discussion we had on the show where we were talking about, like, what it takes to get into combat. that was something that Dadaman
Sword
brought up.
at someone's throat.
That too, but that maybe you don't have to initiate combat, and that it's two different things altogether. Basically, when you're in combat, whether or if you're in basically a social scene when it comes to D&D. One of the things that came up in the meantime, where we're trying to suss out exactly what the topic was the discussion of like a structure for your games. And so this is something that got discussed by a whole lot of people. One of the examples that got used, and I think we'll just jump off of this, was actually from Helicity, that actually had something from Blades in the Dark. This is kind of a useful little diagram to show, to kind of jump off of, to see how other games might have implemented this. But I find this very interesting. So if we look at the Blades in the Dark, they actually have like these 4 ink spots. They've actually created like a little diagram that shows structure of gameplay. And so I'll just kind of explain that for people real quick, and then we'll talk about how it equates to other games that we've played. But what you have here is free play. Okay, so what free play is about character scenes, actions, consequences, gathering information, choosing targets, choosing a plan. This is, I think, what we would consider to be, your social situations. I'm in town, we're doing things, that kind of stuff. I'm buying equipment and such. You have an engagement role. Not very familiar with the system, but I'm guessing that this is how we enact actual, combat. The score, and I don't think they mean, we're gonna score a 10 out of 10, but, the actual score of trying to commit a larceny or some kind of crime, a theft, where you do actions and consequences, you do flashbacks, character development sort of thing. And then that leads to downtime, where you do payoff, heat, entanglements, downtime activities, and then you return to free play. So these are essentially like in scenes, but doing several different things that are in a specific order of operation. This feels a little bit more structured than some of the ones that we usually play. I have seen some systems that use scenes like this, where they will go specifically from one scenario to another scenario to another. But if we were looking at, say, the metric of a D&D, just because that's what we're most familiar with, we can kind of take it to what we normally do. What do we start off with? We have kind of a free play.
Everything you do that's not an interaction is pretty much free play.
It's pretty much free play. And then from that, you might accept a quest. If we're looking at engagement roles, this would probably be like, where are we going from here? So we go from a town or a hub area or the woods or the campsite or whatever, and we say we're going to perform an action. What is that action going to be? What is that quest? What is our goal? I guess establishment of goals is probably the next big thing you want to do, which is eventually going to lead you to an actual encounter. So encounters would be either the random encounters that you normally have, or the ones that are a little bit more structured when I go into a dungeon.
Encounters are any situation that requires conflict.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be combat. It could be traps.
Yep.
Which are non-combat, but still an encounter. It could be the weather could be an encounter. Perhaps you have to overcome. Anything that you have to overcome or have a chance at failing at, I believe, would be an encounter.
Okay. But that will usually lead you into what we were talking about before, which is the combat itself sometimes. Depends.
I fight the ocean.
You fight the ocean, and the ocean fights back.
I'm going to stab the ocean.
Oh, you remember when Mr. Torg was talking about that too. Okay, good.
No, I was actually thinking of the Roman.
Oh, okay.
Who sent his army to go attack the ocean to get back at Poseidon.
Right. I was thinking about the Mr. Torg from Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, where he says, hey, your next quest is you gotta go kill the ocean. and then they say, okay, Mr. Torg, you can't be the quest giver anymore. But anyway, the ocean might not consider that much of an encounter, but good luck with that. From any kind of an encounter like that, there is some sort of resolution, whether it's that you disarmed a trap, or whether you fought off some gnomes, or some orcs, or some gnome orcs.
Some norks.
Some norks. You could fight those off. And then from that you have the resolution, and it usually goes back to some sort of a scene. But there are two... There are kind of like larger overarching structure in a lot of RPGs, and then there's like the smaller loops. You know, like I have the large thing where I'm in town, and then I'm on a journey, and I get to the cave where I have to fight stuff, and then we rest, we might go back to town and complete the quest. That's kind of like your bigger structure. And then you have the ones where you're actually in town or anything like that, and you might end up with some conflicts or some skirmishes or something like that during that time, and you have to resolve them. But those are smaller encounters. I guess the overall thing is, how much structure... This is really the question I want to get to, because I think that kind of makes sense. But how much structure do you really want to have in any RPG? Is this too regimented a structure where I have to determine different things to get from one area to the next?
I think it is determined on what type of game you're playing and what the reason for the structure is. In Blades of the Dark, as the example, it's a heist.
Yeah.
I believe. So
Yes.
having a plan in place makes sense.
Sure.
You want to somehow meticulously, not sure how meticulously, you want to have a plan in place to commit your crime, to do the Ocean's 11. You want to know your plan for who's going to be where, doing what at what time, to be able to enact this heist, to get into this bank vault, and everything go off without a hitch, or where the plan messes up. You know, it's the make a plan so we can have reactions to parts of the plan that fail.
Sure.
And if they succeed, maybe they grant bonuses to parts of other parts of the plan. Like maybe turning off the alarm system makes it so later on you have an easier time going through a hallway that normally has alarms in it.
Sure.
For instance, as an example. But I don't think every game would need that type of regimented system for a format.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
like,
go ahead.
With D&D as the example you were using, it's the, all right, we want to get from point A to point B. It's not a, yeah, we're gonna do X, Y, Z, A, B, and C on the way there. It's gonna be, all right, well, is there anything we need to do that overland travel, or are we going to just going to montage it, or is travel the actual thing we're doing that is important? Because like if the travel is the actual thing that's important, a la Oregon Trail style, you know, then perhaps you should plan it out.
Oregon Trail would make for a very interesting RPG, and I'm starting to realize there probably already is one.
Yeah, it's probably terrible. But if it's just a mechanism of travel, for instance, then it doesn't really need a plan. It's the,
right.
All right, we're gonna load up the wagon. You take point, you take rear. Let's go.
Let's go. And
let's go.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that you have not really planned out for a lot of that. So if something happens along the way, it's really hard to structure that out. You know, because some stuff is going to be random, or it's going to happen in the moment. There's not necessarily a lot of planning that has to go on beyond that. It does remind me that I actually did do a heist, and it was in D&D 5e. And I remember we did that over a couple sessions, and it was more or less like we were trying to rob a casino, and there was a whole layout of what they had for security measures, what they had for surveillance systems, how many people were guarding the vault, what the motivation behind people doing stuff, like what was going on in town. Most of the game, through like the first
planning
was the planning part. It was our team basically, like, the whole first session was going over what we were doing, getting a plan together, and we still didn't have one, and we probably spent the good portion of the next one kind of ironing out some of the kinks in the plan, and then the actual part where we were in the casino was where we got to implement the plan badly, and everything went real off the rails, and we pretty much just ended up with just a cluster of stuff going on at the end, which I do have to say I probably contributed to more than normal, because I figured that this plan seemed like it could go really wrong really quickly. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe if I hire a bunch of these little urchins to set off like a big, like, smoke bomb explosion in the middle if they get the code word, just so that I can, you know, backup plan if we need to escape or something goes wrong. Just a giant loud ass, just a big explosion outside, and it blows things up, and that's gonna be a big distraction. And of course, as they're about to, you know, get caught, or they wind up in conflict down with a giant scorpion bot or something like that, I was like, well, here's the call.
We've both played a bit of Cyberpunk, Nathan.
Yes.
And the heist goes really well. Right up until it completely fails because something unexpected happens.
Yes.
Spoiler.
It does.
No spoilers. Don't worry about it.
It's not early. Well, it's also very early in the game, but but basically you need to know that the story pretty much revolves around the fact that the heist did not go very well.
It was going really well right up until the point where it stopped going really well.
Where it didn't.
And it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that was setting up the plan to do the thing, planning for all the things, like getting it done, and then going in to enact it. But then you have to deal with the fallout of things that you did not foresee happening, could not plan for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's the planning is fine, and to be on the point of this, I think it's different when a game is built around doing heists specifically, or mission tasks.
Sure.
Like, I think I mentioned I wanted to run a game of Death Watch at some point where the players, I'm like, here's your mission.
Sure.
Here's a map. Here are all the objective points you need to do. And in your free time, not in game, you can plan out how you want to do this together.
Sure.
And I'll have things planned for what's going on in each area.
Yeah.
So you can figure out how you want to do it any way you want. But like, here's like your objectives, here's your primary and secondary objectives, here's where they are, here's the map of the place, anything you can expect to know, like a mission briefing style, and then have them implement the plan and play that out how they want to do it. I think that is a different type than, say, D&D would have, because they're different styles of gameplay.
Fair enough. I think that kind of also goes into the idea that there are a wide variety of kind of games that you can play. And so if we were to look at a video game, I think has the structure part pretty well down in terms of that. I would say maybe like an XCOM, where literally I'm on the ship, I'm figuring out like what I want to research, how I want to research it, then I move forward in time, there's a conflict, I figure out my loadout, what I plan on encountering, then I go into the tactical combat part of the game, and then we get our rewards or whatever, and we go back to base. That's kind of the strategy.
I think the framework is always going to be there in a game, it just depending on whose side of the game it is on. Because generally in a D&D or a traditional RPG, the framework will be on the GM side. Got it. You know?
Yeah.
It's alright, well, I've either got this adventure module, which is my framework, which I'm running on with the game we're in. My framework is, this is telling me what every room has, what's going on, what's gonna happen. They decide what they do, and then I have to react to it based on what's going on in this book and what they've done.
Right.
Or what
Right.
you guys have done.
Right.
Whereas the Blades in the Dark and the Death Watch campaign I was talking about would have been players making their plan framework and then me reacting to their plan based on their success or failure or what they do.
Right.
So I think the way we've been looking at it so far has been the player side of the framework. And I feel like in a lot of more, I'm gonna call them more traditional RPGs where the players kind of don't make a huge plan. Most of that framework is on the GM side. But if it's an open world type game and you can do whatever you want, then the players are gonna have a lot more of their hands in the framework of what's gonna happen.
Fair enough. Okay.
It's like, oh, we want to go over here. That's 300 miles away. We're gonna travel there. We're gonna stop here at this inn. So like in that case, like a Skyrim type deal, where you can choose where you're going to do the things that you want to do in what order you want to do them, and then the world is reacting to you doing that because you're there.
Right. Right. There are a couple examples though that I guess I would give that doesn't seem to be very heavy on structure at all. Which would be like if you're either in a survival game that's really reminiscent of the I just washed up on shore and I got nothing going on and now it's just basically a scramble to get stuff together.
As many tabletop role-playing games that are survival games in that aspect?
No, because I think it's hard to implement.
I think it's not necessarily that it's hard to implement, it's that it's hard to implement well in a way that people want to engage with it.
Right.
You could do it.
Yeah.
You can easily turn like your D&D game into a survival game.
Sure.
Oh, who's gonna want to do that?
Right. Right.
You need to find the audience for that.
Yeah.
I have definitely had an idea at one point for a role-playing game where essentially you're not washing up on a shore as you were saying, but you were gonna be like frontier. You land on a new island, you set up a town, and then you expand and explore.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna be like, all right, well you build the town, and then it's like, all right, well then you need to have like different types of buildings you can have, different frameworks, resource management. It would have to have way more stuff than you probably want to deal with in a role-playing game.
Fair. Yeah.
I still think it'd be kind of fun, but I think if I were to implement that, I'd want to strip back the resource management type to very minimalistic. So it becomes much easier to engage with instead of like, oh yeah, you need 300 planks to make that building. That's like, yeah, no, you need to secure the resources for like this. Or maybe the buildings will have a, instead of a material cost, they'll have a gold cost for the materials.
Okay, yeah.
To make it more simplified.
Right.
Or maybe you come across points in the map that are like, oh, we found a forest. You know, this will generate.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think that, like, in general, and maybe at some point we'll talk about it more, but in D&D I always felt like crafting as a general, it was underutilized because there's not time, like, especially if you're not like an artificer or something, it kind of becomes like a novelty. You don't necessarily use it very often.
Yeah, the rules for it as written don't tend to be very good.
No. There is, though, another kind of game that I would say is about as structureless as any, which is roguelikes. I don't think that you could really do a tabletop version of that I know of.
And I don't think it would be your typical tabletop game as well. It wouldn't be your typical RPG. You could do tabletop roguelike a lot easier than tabletop role-playing game like D&D style.
Right. So we'd probably be looking at like probably like a tile game or a card game.
I was just gonna say like a tiling roguelike. I think I probably had an idea for that at some point in the past. Probably from playing Curse of the Dead Gods, honestly.
Sure.
I think I'd mentioned to Ray that it would be really cool to do a tiling game with rooms where it's a roguelike and you had your character sheet or plaque with your stuff. You could get equipment and do stuff from there.
Right.
could be fun to make sometime.
Yeah, there is a game that I just played a bit of called Guild of Dungeoneering that actually utilizes something to that effect, essentially, where you take your little adventure into a dungeon and then you have cards. You get an assortment of cards and you can use those to lay out new dungeon tiles or monsters or treasures, and then your character moves to whatever it is and fights the bat or the bear owl that happens to be in there.
The owl bat.
The owl bat. Yeah, there's probably one of those. There's a lot of stuff like that. But something like that, if you implemented it in an actual tabletop system, that would be kind of neat. I can definitely see a possibility of taking a character that actually has a character sheet, similar to a role-playing game, but then implementing the very randomized elements of actually laying down specific tiles and just, like, not knowing what the next encounter is going to be, what the next room is going to be, and then determining how that, what if equipment could be randomized, the whole thing, in each single room. But that definitely wouldn't be the kind of RPG that we're normally thinking about.
Right.
That would be a much faster, much quicker, probably, not a character development sort of game in itself. But I think that generally, like, I liked what they did with giving, like, a graphical overlay for that Blades in the Dark example we were talking about earlier. Mostly because if you're a new player to a system and you're looking at these giant, like, lengths of text in front of you, your first thought is going to be, well, this seems inaccessible in general. Regardless of how much structure you have in a game, having something that maps out the basic framework does seem to have value. And we had many comments that were basically just about that there is actual value in being able to show very clearly what the structure of your game is, if any, so that people can really get an idea of, we go from here to here to here to here and back, when you get into those moments. Don't always see it with a lot of game books, maybe because we've gotten very conditioned over the course of time to just kind of, like, know the systems we know. But I hope that in, like, quick start guides or in demo adventures and stuff, that they're really trying to lay that part out for people.
Maybe we need a flowchart for our episodes.
We need a flowchart for our episodes. That's exactly what we do need. We'll build one. Somebody out there, just build a flowchart for Total Pebble Knockdown. We'll go from Total to Pebble to Knockdown.
Oh, the flowchart looks kind of like our logo. It's rocks falling down a hill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a landslide.
Yeah, it's a landslide. You just see the little things.
Everything just going downhill.
Yeah, it's always downhill from here. It's all downhill from here. But anyway, if folks would like to figure out what the structure of our episodes are, we don't have one. But
if you want to find out the structure of our website, however,
yeah, there you go.
You can go to totalpebbleknockdown.com.
Feel free to check out all the content that we have over there, and if you click on the Patreon banner, you can also get some of these videos, all of the mainline videos actually, in full form in video before the individual episodes ever come out. So that's always...
and you can help us figure out our Patreon structure. Hey!
Yeah, because the Patreon structure is still going through some growing pains from the previous version that we had on the old show, so we're still trying to figure out what the different reward tiers are going to offer. So,
if you have thoughts on it, also let us know.
Yes, you can let us know either over on Patreon if you're already a patron, or you can let us know on our Discord channel, which is public, so please feel free to come by over there. Or you can leave us a message on any of our social media. I am at Satanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is at Pebble Knockdown.
Yep, you can find us there. And if you want to keep up to date on the episodes when they launch, we are on every podcast that application that I think exists on the known universe.
We're even available to be played on Amazon Alexa. Thank you, our analytical data, for letting us know that.
Yes, and also thank you to our analytical data to tell us that all of our listeners are on Earth.
And 1% of them are between the ages of 0 and 17.
That's right. That's Baby's First Headset.
Baby's First Podcast.
Baby's First Podcast.
That needs to be a bib we make. Baby's First Podcast.
This definitely should not be Baby's First Podcast. This is deep cut stuff. This is
second bib, second podcast.
Baby's second podcast.
Baby's second podcast.
World's okayest podcast. That's what we're going to have on the mug.
Best podcast ever. We got the award earlier.
That's right. We did.
Yeah.
We gave ourselves that award.
We are the self-proclaimed best podcast on Earth.
You can't argue with that, folks.
A misinterpretation of that analytical data I had earlier with 100% Earth totally means that 100% of Earth is listening to our podcast.
That's true. Yeah, we've made it. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Thanks.
100%. Everybody.
100%. 100% of Earth listens to the podcast now, and, hey, you can't argue with that. Thank you. Thank you. We've worked very hard to get here. We're very happy about that.
We have worked marginally hard.
We have worked marginally hard to get here. Oh, yeah. I'm still in some... Wait, hold it. Green screen's back. Perfect. That must mean that it's time for us to go. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. We apologize, probably. And we don't apologize, I guess. And we will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.
Bye.